Today's class on female genital system, we see pathology of the body of uterus and endometrium. So you all know that endometrial histology is basically uh, dependent on the hormones, okay, that is which deals with your menstrual cycle. Okay, the hormones are estrogen and progesterone, and also that ovulation period, the dating, everything you can actually diagnose with the help of endometrial biopsies or looking the endometrial histology. Also, they can take the endometrial biopsy to diagnose the cause of endometrial bleeding and infertility as well. So here you can see two pictures. In the first one you can see tubular endometrial glands which are lined by columnar epithelial cells, and you can see the stroma which is surrounding the endometrial glands, which is more compact. Okay, so this tubular endometrial glands with this compact stroma is a feature of proliferative endometrium. So when you call this endometrium is in proliferative phase, that is a pre-ovulatory phase. Okay, that is proliferative phase. Okay, that is controlled by the which hormone? That is estrogen. Okay, the second picture you can see after ovulation, what happens under the influence of progesterone, the glands will become more secretory. So because it has to secrete secretory substances, it is having that vacuoles. You can see the difference here is that from the first picture you can see the endometrial glands are lined by cells, but the cells have vacuolation. So the vacuoles are there inside the cytoplasm. So that gives the appearance of a piano key. So this is the typical feature of a secretory endometrium. Okay, secretory endometrium. And here also you can see that secretory endometrium which shows edema in the stroma. The first picture you can see the stroma is widely spaced. Okay, stroma is more whitish in color, so that is because of the edema. All these are features of this secretory phase stroma. Also in the second picture you can see that small arterioles, they are known as spiral arterioles. You might have learned in your anatomy classes. The spiral arterioles, they come from the base and they reach the topmost portion, that is the stratum functionale, and that is seen in secretory phase. Also another feature of secretory phase is this progesterone can lead to decidualization of the stroma. In the second picture you can see the stroma is little more dense, means not dense, it is having a little more amount of cytoplasm. So this is known as a decidualization of the stroma. That is also a feature of your secretory phase. Here also more pictures of the secretory phase stroma. You can see even very dense cytoplasm, very abundant cytoplasm of the cells lining the glands. That is also a feature of secretory phase endometrium. Now the other entity in endometrium is, this is a pathological part. So till now you have seen the normal part, that is the proliferative endometrium and the secretory endometrium. Now you can see the pathological aspects. So what do you mean by dysfunctional uterine bleeding? So this is a clinical terminology actually. So they use it for any kind of bleeding, PV, which arises from the uterus, but it is usually you can't identify a lesion, a structural abnormality in the uterus. So that is known as dysfunctional uterine bleeding. They don't know the cause, structural abnormality won't be there. So what is the pathology behind that? That is basically a type of anovulatory cycle, that is due to an anovulatory cycle, and usually this anovulation or absence of ovulation, even though there is absence of ovulation, the patient will be bleeding. Okay, that can be due to several other disorders like thyroid disease. We have to evaluate for thyroid disease, adrenal disease, the adrenal tumors, pituitary tumors, etc. Okay, and another thing, you have to evaluate the ovaries. Patient will have a polycystic ovarian disease, okay, where the patient will be having bleeding. Another thing is generalized systemic disturbances, metabolic disturbances like marked obesities, then severe malnutrition, chronic systemic diseases, all these can lead to uterine bleeding. So that doesn't mean dysfunctional uterine bleeding, that term doesn't mean that the uterus have some disorder. It can be due to some other lesion which causes the uterus to bleed. Okay, so it can this is how this abnormal uterine bleeding or AUB, it is also known as AUB or DUB. It can be due to different causes. Okay, so just go through that. Okay, usually it is seen most commonly in the perimenopausal and postmenopausal age groups. And the perimenopausal age groups, the usual causes are anovulatory cycles, irregular shedding. Sometimes it can be caused by organic lesions like carcinoma, hyperplasia of the endometrium, or polyps. Okay, so that can be hidden inside. So that is also coming under abnormal uterine bleeding. Okay, in postmenopausal ladies who bleeds can be due to carcinoma, hyperplasia, or endometrial atrophy. Okay. Okay, so now we'll start a new topic, that is endometriosis. So you might have heard this term previously in your clinics and all. So what is this endometriosis? This is very important. A lot of times I've asked the question, and also in the clinics also you'll see cases of endometriosis common very frequently. So that is the presence of endometrial glands or stroma in abnormal locations outside the uterus. So that is where is the common site of endometrial glands. You can see the endometrial glands and stroma inside the uterus, only inside which lines the uterus, that is the endometrium. Okay, which are what are the layers of uterus? That is, you have endometrium, you have myometrium, and a perimetrium. So these three layers are the normal lining of the uterus, normal layers. So if you see the endometrial glands or stroma in locations outside the uterus, so which are the common locations you get these endometrial glands and stroma? So the most important location are ovaries. One is the ovary, then uterine ligaments. You can get this endometrial glands and stroma along, both of them should be there outside the uterus. Retrovaginal septum and the pelvic peritoneum. Laparotomy scars, that is also very important location, where then you call it as a scar endometriosis. Okay, and you can get it in umbilicus, that is not that rare, but you can get vagina, vulva, even appendix. So these are all common sites of endometriosis. Okay, so this is very important. So what is the presentation of this endometriosis? Patients usually present with infertility, dysmenorrhea, that is one of the most common symptom, that is dysmenorrhea, difficulty or painful menstruation. Next is pelvic pain. Okay, why this pain is there in endometriosis? Because there are a lot of adhesions. If wherever these endometrial glands are there, what happens? From all the sides it starts bleeding during the menstrual cycles. So there will be dysmenorrhea, there will be difficulty or pain during menstrual cycles. And this pelvic pain, again it can be due to this bleeding, but there is another feature of endometriosis is adhesions. It can cause adhesions with all the adjacent structures. Like if there is an endometriotic site inside the colon, it can cause adhesion between different colonic segments. So that is because it is bleeding. So it is bleeding, then again regressing, again bleeding, regressing. So that causes adhesions. Okay, and it is usually seen in active reproductive age group people. So this is a cut section of a soft tissue with those scar with endometrial tissue, that is endometriosis, which can be seen as those gray, white and reddish areas. So if you see the microscopy, it is typically very typical. Okay, you can see that fibrous tissue, that muscle and all, and then in the center you can see some blue thing, that is nothing but the endometrial gland and surrounding stroma. So that is very typical of endometriosis, very easy to diagnose also. Okay, so there are different uh, pathogenetic pathways in endometriosis, because why this endometrium is coming outside the uterus, what is the pathogenesis behind that? So they are saying that it can be due to different there are lot of different concepts regarding this endometriosis. One is, they say that it can be due to a lymphatic dissemination. Sometimes in from the uterus through the lymphatics, it can go, this endometrial tissue can go and settle somewhere else, like in umbilicus, okay, etc., or in the colon. Okay, so that is one theory regarding this. All those theories are there, but no one is actually sure what is the definite theory behind this. So we have to learn all these pathogenesis aspects. Now the next thing is a regurgitation theory. What is this regurgitation theory? You can see from the uterus, it can, this endometrial tissue, it can go through the fallopian tube, okay, through the fimbrial end, it can come out into the peritoneal cavity, and it can go, that is the retrograde pathway, okay, it is going the reverse way. So it is going and settling somewhere inside the peritoneum, like in the appendix, etc. So that is one theory. Another one is the metaplastic differentiation of the coelomic epithelium. So, from the embryogenesis time itself, you can see the coelomic epithelium which lines the body cavities. From there, what happens? Sometimes there can be metaplasia. That is, the coelomic epithelium can transform into endometrial glands and stroma. So that later it will form proper endometrial glands and stroma, and during the active reproductive phase it starts its functions. Okay, so that is another theory, metaplastic differentiation of coelomic epithelium. Another theory is extrapelvic dissemination through pelvic veins, that is hematogenous spread. Through pelvic veins it can go, it can this small cells of this endometrium, it can disseminate through these veins and it can go and settle somewhere. Okay, so these are all some theories regarding this endometriosis. This is also very important. They will ask the pathogenesis of endometriosis also. Now, what is the clinical course? I told you initially. So patient will have severe dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, pelvic pain, pain on defecation. If the patient is having rectal involvement, they have pain on defecation. Then dysuria when it is involving the bladder, menstrual irregularities, even that can be a risk factor for malignancies. Okay, so the endometriosis is very important. It is very common entity, very commonly seen in young ladies. Okay, so it's very important. In the clinical aspect also, it's very important. So learn it very thoroughly. Now, another pathological lesion in uterus is known as adenomyosis. So, what is this adenomyosis? Similarly, like in endometriosis, you have this endometrial glands and stroma outside the uterus, outside the uterine cavity. But here, this endometrial glands and stroma are again, they are seen in some other site, but that is inside the myometrium. So, presence of endometrial tissue in the myometrium is known as adenomyosis. And you can see this irregularness of stroma with or without, even without glands you can get. But what's the difference between this adenomyosis and endometriosis? This adenomyotic foci of endometrial glands, it should be separated from the basalis by at least 2 to 3 millimeter. What do you mean by that? There is a there is a border between the endometrium and the myometrium. Okay, so from that border downwards, it should be separated by 2 to 3 millimeter. Only after a 2 millimeter difference of that space should be there between the endometrium and the adenomyotic foci. Then only you will call that as adenomyosis. And patient will have colicky dysmenorrhea and pain. Okay, but here this menorrhagia is usually not seen in adenomyosis, because this adenomyotic glands are usually non-functional, or it is usually the basal endometrial layer is going and migrating to the myometrium, rather than a functional endometrium. The stratum functional part is going in the endometriosis. Here it is the basal endometrium which is going into the myometrium. Understood? So that's why here there is no menorrhagia, because it is not functioning according to the hormonal cycles. So here the patient will only have dysmenorrhea. So, and on the uterus, the gross of the uterus, gross feature. What is the gross feature? It is seen in the myometrium. I told you endometrial glands are seen inside the myometrium. So only there will be some variation in the myometrium, and that is known as trabeculations. The trabeculated appearance of the myometrium is a feature of adenomyosis. That is just a thickening or a trabeculated appearance of the myometrium. Other than that, there will not be any gray white, well circumscribed, no lesions will be there. Okay. So this is again the myometrium with foci of endometrial glands. So that is the feature of adenomyosis. Now, so both this endometriosis and adenomyosis, they are not tumors. They are just pathological lesions you see in uterus. So they are not tumors. Okay. So we'll move to the neoplastic part. Okay. So in the neoplastic part, the pre-neoplastic lesions of endometrium, the first important one is endometrial hyperplasia, and that is the most important one you have to remember. So that is an important cause of abnormal uterine bleeding. So hyperplasia, from the term itself you know that the glands, the cells will be increased in number. Okay. So here there are both there are two components in the endometrium. You know that there is a gland and there is a stroma. So here only the gland component will be hyperplastic. So there will be increased gland to stroma ratio. Okay, and this malignant potential is there in certain endometrial hyperplasias. That there is a subdivision of this endometrial hyperplasias. So some of this hyperplasia will have high risk of malignancy. And what is the risk factor for this hyperplasia? Why this hyperplasia is happening? The pathogenesis is basically estrogen stimulation. So the estrogen is the culprit of endometrial hyperplasia, and any factor which leads to increased estrogen production or estrogen stimulation to the endometrium will lead to hyperplasia of the endometrium. Also, there is a pathology, that is inactivation of PTEN tumor suppressor gene. That is also another etiological factor. So how do you classify endometrial hyperplasia? There are two classifications. There are two types. They are non-atypical and atypical hyperplasia. So what is this non-atypical? From the term itself, you can know that non-atypia means there will not be atypia or the dysplasia. There will not be any dysplasia or atypia. Just the endometrial glands are increased without any features of malignancy. Okay. Whereas atypical hyperplasia, you have features of dysplasia. That is increased nuclear stratification, prominent nucleoli, nuclear pleomorphism, mitosis, everything. So that is atypical. So that is the latest classification of endometrial hyperplasia. That is non-atypical and atypical. So for your exam, you should always write this non-atypical and atypical. But in your textbooks, you may find the simple or complex hyperplasia. Simple hyperplasia and complex hyperplasia. That is the older classification. But this non-atypical and atypical is a newer classification. You can also learn this older classification, but you have to mention in your exams that this is the older classification and this is a newer classification. In the older classification, you have a simple hyperplasia with atypia, simple hyperplasia without atypia, and also under complex, again complex hyperplasia without atypia and complex hyperplasia with atypia. So based on different consensus and all, they have removed the simple and complex terms Just they have simplified this classification into a typical and non-atypical hyperplasia. Okay. So this picture shows a case of endometrial hyperplasia. You see the glands are so closely packed. Okay. And what about the stroma? The stroma is very less. There will not be any stroma in between. So glands will be appear very crowded back to back. Okay. So that is a simple hyperplasia. This picture is a simple hyperplasia, back to back arrangement of glands. And can you see any dysplasia, features of dysplasia? So that is non-atypical hyperplasia. Okay, that's a non-atypical hyperplasia of endometrium. Now we can see here this is atypical hyperplasia. That is, you can see the same glands, but you can see features of malignancy. You can see atypical cells with darker chromatin, with coarse chromatin, pleomorphism, stratification. But the same pattern is also maintained here, like back-to-back arrangement of glands will be there with very minimal stroma. So increased this gland to stroma ratio will be there. Features of atypia will be there. So this is known as atypical hyperplasia of endometrium. So that completes this class, today's class. And this endometrial hyperplasia is a pre-malignant condition. This atypical hyperplasia especially is a pre-malignant condition with which we should progress to a carcinoma endometrium. So we'll see carcinoma endometrium in the other class. Okay, so thank you.